newly elected president of the People's National Party and opposition leader Mark Golding was sworn in today. An additional 3 COVID-19 related deaths and 31 new cases were recorded across Jamaica yesterday, November 9, bringing the latest number of fatalities to 224 and the total number of cases to 9,573. The KSAMC, along with Member of Parliament for East Rural St. Andrew, assesses damages caused by recent flooding due to heavy rains.
I am sure we are almost at a place, if not at a place, to be determined as a disaster zone.
And Mayor of Montego Bay, Councillor Leroy Williams, urges vendors to operate in designated areas for vending, especially in the upcoming Christmas season.
I don't have a problem with vending, but on the main street in Montego Bay, you cannot do it that way.
Good evening. Newly elected president of the People's National Party, PNP, Mark Golding, was sworn in today as opposition leader. And we have more on this story with Khalid May.
The newly elected PNP president was sworn in by Governor General Sir Patrick Allen at a small ceremony at King's House in St. Andrew. Sir Allen, in his remarks, said that Mr. Golding's many years of experience in business and public service has prepared him for his path of leadership.
Mr. Golding is not only Member of Parliament for St. Andrews Southern, but also an accomplished lawyer and an entrepreneur. His knowledge of the law, his business acumen and years of service has more than prepared him to chart this course of leadership. The People's National Party and the wider Jamaica can be expected to benefit from this vast knowledge and experience that he takes to his new role. I commend his family members and colleagues who are here this morning to support and to witness this milestone. We must always be mindful that the work of public officials, especially those in Parliament, in government and state, their work can be extremely demanding and often take a toll on family life and relationships. Let us therefore commit to support our leaders, and let us also be conscious of our responsibility to recognize our common humanity.
Mr. Golding, in his remarks, says the opposition will seek to strengthen good governance and face the COVID-19 pandemic in a bipartisan way.
The opposition provides a critical check and balance to the use of state power by the government. Nevertheless, we will not oppose for its own sake, but always with the objective of strengthening good governance and accountability in the affairs of the nation. We will seek to be constructive in our words and deeds and be fearless and unrelenting in the face of corruption or maladministration wherever it arises. I assume this office at a time when our country is facing unprecedented hardships. The COVID pandemic has already cost over 220 lives in Jamaica, most of them in the past 2 months, and has resulted in a sharp slowdown in the economy. Jamaica is now in a deep recession, and unemployment has spiked by over 50% this year. In the face of this national crisis, we must embrace bipartisanship wherever it is in the best interests of the Jamaican people to do so.
Golding has also vowed to keep the Andrew Holness-led government with its supermajority in the House of Representatives on its toes.
Now, more than ever, our nation needs a strong and responsible opposition. Though our numbers in Parliament are relatively small, we little but we talawa. We must be cohesive, prepared, and strategic as we stand up for the Jamaican people and perform our parliamentary duties. We must reach out to civil society and the wider public for support where important issues of principle are at stake and the government is going down the wrong path. Amidst the hardships and crisis now afflicting the nation, the opposition must present a beacon of hope to lift the spirits of the Jamaican people. We must ready ourselves to provide an alternative to the country for when the wind of change catches the nation's sails. I humbly and gratefully commit to serving as leader of opposition effectively and resolutely with my opposition members of Parliament and supported by our members in the Senate. Jamaica needs a robust and effective opposition at this time, and as a new opposition leader, it will be done.
Reporting for Mello TV News, I'm Colleen May.
Thanks, Colleen. Meanwhile, during today's sitting of Parliament, Mr. Golding implored Prime Minister Andrew Holness to reconsider reinstating the Oversight Committee.
We must embrace bipartisanship wherever it is in the best interests of the Jamaican people. However, we note that the Parliamentary Committee on COVID that was established earlier in the year stopped meeting before the recent general election, and despite the intensification of the public health crisis since the election, that committee has not been reconstituted. As a result, the opposition no longer has an inclusive voice in strategizing with the government in response to the pandemic crisis. I invite the government to reconsider the exclusion of the opposition in that way. On a similar note, Madam Speaker, the matter of reinstating the role of opposition members to chair select committees of Parliament remains unresolved. That convention was first implemented by former Prime Minister, Most Honourable Bruce Golding, in 2007, and it continued through 3 successive administrations until this current one. The Prime Minister's decision to depart from the convention and have government members chair all but 2 of the sessional committees has weakened parliamentary oversight of the executive. Calls have been made by civil society and the media to restore the convention, along with useful suggestions to strengthen the process. I urge the Prime Minister once again to reconsider this matter and to reinstate opposition chairmanship of the sessional committees.
In the meantime, Member of Parliament Lisa Hanna says she was unable to attend this morning's swearing-in ceremony for the new leader of the opposition, Mark Golding, due to an illness. Ms. Hanna, in a statement released today, said that yesterday she was ordered by her doctors to stay home for the next 4 days due to severe chest cold and sinus complications. Ms. Hanna, who was Mr. Golding's opponent in the recent PNP presidential election, said on receiving the invitation after 10 p.m. last night from Mr. Golding, she immediately called the party leader early this morning to appraise him of the physical situation and to extend her best wishes. In other news, an additional 3 COVID-19 related deaths and 31 new cases were recorded across Jamaica yesterday, November 9. According to the Ministry of Health and Wellness, the deceased persons are an 87-year-old female from Hanover, an 87-year-old female from St. Catherine, and a 90-year-old female from St. Catherine. The death of the 90-year-old was previously under investigation. The latest fatalities bring the death toll from the coronavirus in Jamaica to 224. The 31 newly confirmed COVID-19 cases bring the total number of cases on record for the island to 9,573. Recoveries increased by 35 on Monday, bringing that total to 4,987. Of the newly confirmed cases, 19 are females and 12 are males, with ages ranging from 1 to 82 years. The cases were recorded in St. James with 9, St. Catherine 9, Kingston and St. Andrew 3, Westmoreland 3, Manchester 2, Trelawney 2, Hanover 1, St. Elizabeth 1, and St. Anne 1. There are 19 moderately ill patients and 5 critically ill patients among the 4,234 active cases now under observation in Jamaica. The Ministry of Education, Youth and Information announced that 16 of the 17 schools selected to participate in the pilot face-to-face teaching initiative began classes today. Yallah's High School has asked to begin tomorrow because of recent flooding on the school grounds. The original scheduled start for the pilot was delayed yesterday because of inclement weather across the island. Assessments and feedback from the schools indicate that the physical plans are ready for classes and arrangements are in place to help students, teachers and other staff to observe the public health protocols mandated by the Ministry of Health and Wellness to mitigate the possible spread of COVID-19. The Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation, KSAMC, along with Member of Parliament for East Rural St. Andrew, Juliet Holness, are assessing the damage caused by recent flooding due to heavy rains. And we have more on this story with Kalimi.
A team from the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation and Member of Parliament for St. Andrew East Rural, Juliet Holness, toured the Bull Bay community yesterday to assess damages due to severe weather conditions over the past week. Mrs. Holness, in speaking with our news team, expressed that based on assessment, the Bull Bay community is almost at a place to be classified as a disaster zone.
The constituency has been devastated by the recent flood rains. I am sure we are almost at a place, if not at a place, to be determined as a disaster zone in several areas. At the Gordon Town end, we are totally blocked off. All the way going up to Gordon Town, the area of Penfield, Mount Industry, all of Mavis Bank is blocked off. In order for you to be able to enter the Papine area coming into Kingston, your only alternate route will be to go through St. Thomas, which also has some significant damage, or to come from Mavis Bank through St. Peter's, and that has bad road. We have very excellent road from Guava Ridge to Content. Content is also blocked. So when you think about it, we have had landslides, road breakaway, flooding from every single area in the constituency. The list is extensive. We have had houses literally just sinking under the earth in Shooters Hill. I've gone to visit, and 2-story structures have just vanished from sight.
Mrs. Holness says with more rains projected for the coming weekend, the community is in deep trouble.
We are very concerned because we do not think it's the end of the rains, and if the system that is coming theta also affects us in the coming weekend, we are in deep trouble. We have been in touch with the NAA. They have equipment out here. We actually need far more. We need to be able to move faster in removing the volume of material, because another shower of rain, we're still not in a position where we are prepared to take any more water at this time. So excavators are in the Chalky River trying to create the pathway, but every single time the water comes, it creates its own pathway. Old time people in Jamaica used to say, wherever river walk one time, it walks again, and where we're standing used to be a part of the Chalky River, and now residents occupy the space. But at this time, I encourage all the residents of Wees Road, by the time you hear the shout river, sometimes it is already too late. And so I'm asking you, utilize the shelter. I am available to every single one who is there to help with additional food, with any medical supplies, in whatever way I can make your stay at the shelter more comfortable, and have indicated that we will help in marshalling and securing your furniture so that you can feel comfortable about saving life above all, property second.
Mayor of Kingston and the chairman of the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation, KSAMC, Delroy Williams, explained that given what had happened to the Gordon Town community, having a major breakaway, the KSAMC is looking on alternative routes.
KSAC officers have been out and evaluating and assessing damages across the municipality. We are aware of what has happened to the Gordon Town Road, and that we are currently looking at alternate routes. Our officers are in the field and they are checking on. There are several alternate routes there for various communities in East Rural and West Rural, and we are now checking the condition of those alternate routes and will issue a statement on those as soon as possible. We also have the issue of the New Haven, and our officer has done some assessment there, and we are looking at how quick we can act to remedy that situation. And so we are looking at medium, short-term, medium, and long-term at that. But our officers are out in the field and they are doing an assessment and proposing short-term and medium-term solutions. We urge residents of areas that are prone to landslides just to be patient, because it's not always advisable to remove a landslide as soon as it has occurred, because the soil is super saturated and the soil above the landslide is also unstable. So the landslides at times provide a buffer or support for the soil that is above it.
A family that was in the path of flood waters explained how they escaped, outlining that lack of gullies being cleaned is a likely contributor for the severe flooding in sections of the community.
Yesterday we were looking up on the road and realized that the gully itself was burst. Then after a while I realized that the water was coming a little bit heavier than we expected. So at that moment we were at the wall and we were looking and we realized that the water were passing down the barriers, because we had sandbags for barriers. And so after a few while it started to rush over the veranda wall. After it rushed over the veranda wall, they started to rush into the house. And me at that time was panicking, and at that time I was like having a breakdown at the moment. And so we were in my mother's room, which is much more higher, but in her room at that moment it was being inside. The water started to flow inside in that area. And so we realized that we had nowhere to go through her back door or through my room door otherwise than that, so I had to take it through the window. So I was the first one to attempt, because being the older sister, you have to be brave for the kids because they were crying. So I had to jump through the window, I had to climb up, I had to get my sister first, because she was much more lighter than my niece. I had to get my sister first, then I had to get my niece, and then after my mother was in the house and they were crying saying, "Mommy, we don't want her to drown." And then they went for the ladder. My brothers went for the ladder, so they went to the ladder and they went for my mother, but she was at the moment at the time was fainting, but her husband was there to help her up through her situation, and we were on the house top for quite a few while until residents of the Bull Bay community came and helped us to go around.
But the reason for this is just pure maintenance of the gully. If the gully did not clean on a regular basis, this would not happen. For a long time, this is really absurd. But just like the member of parliament can do what they have to do for assist the people. And all them need to do is just clear back the seal, can maintain the gully, put some Gabian baskets in the gully and everything with them. Everybody going back to square one.
Reporting for Mello TV News, I'm Colleen May.
Thanks, Colleen. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Andrew Holness, during today's sitting of Parliament, gave an update on roads that have been damaged due to recent widespread heavy rainfall.
Preliminary assessment for this event shows that over 200 roads island-wide were severely impacted by similar issues as was the case with Zeta before. And in Zeta, I had reported that approximately 80 roads were severely impacted. With Zeta, with ETA rather, we have already now assessed 206 roads as being impacted. So under the previous system, we had 80 roads. Under this system, we have assessed 206 roads. Now, whether or not they are additional, we'll be cross-checking. But certainly you can see that it is an increase. So there will be a bill that we will have to contemplate as a parliament as to how we recover.
And as the country still grapples with the aftermath of major flooding and landslides, Prime Minister Holness says the Met Office of Jamaica projects that similar rainfall will affect the country in the coming days.
There are still 20 days to go before the official end of the hurricane season. But with 2020 breaking every record that was set by the 2005 season, the development of tropical storms could again feature well after November 30th this year. Just last night, another storm, Theta, formed over the Atlantic Ocean, making the 2020 season now the all-time most active season, hurricane season on record. Madam Speaker, the Met Office is advising that forecast models again are projecting the strengthening of another tropical wave in the region later this week, and that it could be a repeat performance of increased rainfall for the weekend. So I urge persons living in low-lying areas, flood-prone areas, persons who reside on areas where we know the soil condition is unstable, that they should be prepared.
In other news, Police Commissioner Major General Anthony Anderson says he has taken note of reports in mainstream and social media that persons who have visited police stations to make reports after the start of curfew hours have been turned away. Commissioner Anderson is assuring the public that the recently reported incidents ought not to define the police force, and that the majority of the men and women of the constabulary force are committed to serving and protecting the people of Jamaica. The police commissioner has urged all members to observe the policy guidelines of the force and has issued clear directives to all area and divisional commanders to ensure that members are consistently reminded of their responsibilities as required by policy and by law. In the specific instances reported, the Inspectorate and Professional Standards Oversight Bureau has commenced internal investigations. 35-year-old Radre Hunter of Franklin Town, Kingston, has been missing since Sunday, November 8. He's of dark complexion, slim build, and about 5 feet 8 inches tall. Reports from the Franklin Town Police are that Hunter was last seen at home wearing a blue t-shirt, black jeans, and a pair of black shoes. Efforts to contact him have proven futile. Anyone knowing the whereabouts of Roger Hunter is asked to contact the Franklin Town Police at 876-928-9656, Police 119 emergency number, or the nearest police station. The St. James Police have commenced an investigation into the death of 5-year-old Jadon Peterkin, who burned to death at his home in Flankers yesterday. Reports by the Coral Garden Police are that shortly before midday, the infant was left at home in Old Road Flankers by his mother in the care of his grandmother, while she went downtown Montego Bay to run some errands. The child reportedly went back inside his mother's one-room board house to get snacks when the house caught fire, resulting in the building being completely destroyed and Jadon burning to death. One unit from the Ironshore Fire Department traveled to the scene and carried out cooling down operations, which resulted in the infant boy's charred remains being discovered under the burnt rubble. A foreign national who came to Jamaica and reportedly breached the Disaster Risk Management Act and then attempted to leave the island was arrested at the Norman Manley International Airport, NMIA. Reports are that on November 6, the female British national who was staying in St. Mary was held trying to board a plane to leave the island. The police did not disclose the details of how she breached the Disaster Risk Management Act, which in part deals with breaches of COVID-19 protocols, but said a warrant was issued for the woman's arrest earlier in the month. Reports are that the woman checked in to board a British Airways flight destined for London and was arrested and handed over at the NMIA police station. She was later picked up by members of the St. Mary Police Division. Mayor of Montego Bay, Councillor Leroy Williams, is urging vendors to operate in designated areas for vending, especially in the upcoming Christmas season. And here is Nathesha Johnson with more on this story.
As we prepare for the Christmas season, Mayor of Montego Bay and Chairman of the St. James Municipal Corporation, Leroy Williams, met with vendors that operate within the city earlier today. Mayor Williams implored vendors that they no longer can operate from the main streets in the way that they have been going about it, especially when visitors to the country often traverse those streets.
Apart from tourists coming, visitors from other parts of the island, when they come downtown Montego Bay and they see the condition, they are saying, I mean, it's unbelievable. They cannot walk on the street side because the vendors have taken over the street sides. No, this cannot be. We cannot let visitors come and on our main street, the main street in Montego Bay, it is like that. I don't have a problem with persons vending. I don't have a problem with persons vending. But on the main street in Montego Bay, you cannot do it that way.
Mayor Williams outlined streets that are designated for street vending.
So there are some streets that are designated for vending, and I name the streets. Church Lane, Lower Market Street, and on Lower Market Street, persons are allowed to vend fruits and small accessories, and also clothing and other haberdashery stuff. You're allowed to vend on Lower Market Street. I want you to listen to me very carefully. Other streets for vending, there's Corner Lane, where you can do clothes vending. You have Lawrence Lane that you can vend. You have North Street that you can vend. You have the bottom of Union Street that you can vend. And I noticed that a porridge vendor is allowed to vend up by number 1 post office. A fruit vendor is accommodated on St. Claver's Avenue. You can also vend on Dean's Lane, and that's for clothes. Now, those are the vending areas, and there are specific times that you should vend.
The Montego Bay mayor further added that as the city continues to develop, he implored persons not to commit acts that will prevent the growth of the city.
We have development taking place. For example, you have the waterfront beach park just down the road from here. We do have a new fire station being built. Come next year, the bypass road will start. There's also the bypass for the Long Hill Road. So all these things will be coming on stream. So what we do not want is that as citizens in and around Montego Bay, we commit acts that will stem the development of our city or prevent our city from growing as it should.
I'm Nathisha Johnson reporting for Mello TV News.
Thanks, Nathisha. And those are the stories making news. I'll return with the recap. We will now take a break and then join Christopher Scott with sports.